That's a very good question, Rob, about emptiness, fullness, or emptiness. Those were the words you used. So there's quite a bit of confusion about this, but if we come back to yesterday, I was speaking about the standards that Buddha Shakyamuni set up. I was speaking about two main things. One is emptiness and one is aliveness. And there is a realization of emptiness, which is a gradual progress. And there is a realization of aliveness, which is also gradual progress. In traditional Zen, as well as in revitalized Zen, we speak of 4 stages of realization. The 4th one is when twofold or threefold Buddhahood is attained. Twofold means 2 subtle bodies. Threefold means the physical body also, so all 3 bodies. So Buddhahood, that is the 4th final stage, and then there are the 3 previous stages of Kensho, awakenings, Satori, where awakened state, you kind of grow into it, you integrate into it. So Kensho's initial awakenings, major shifts, followed by deepening of awakenings. Those are the first 2. And then the 3rd one is this Daigo, or great death, which is related to this aliveness aspect. So Kensho and Satori concern emptiness, and Daigo concerns this aliveness. Just like Shakyamuni Buddha taught in his 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma. I think I mentioned 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma yesterday, and it's quite interesting because most of Buddhism is concerned with emptiness, as you know. It is the understandably and necessarily, it's like the first thing to be addressed, because it solves this existential pain, existential confusion, or dukkha. And most of Buddhism is focused on this emptiness, figuring out what this emptiness, or going back to zero, that shunyata, what it means, what the experience is, what is awakening to this empty nature of mind, selfless nature of mind. And because it is simply the case that throughout history there hasn't been, like, if we imagine all Buddhist practitioners during the past 2,500 years, there has been billions of them, right? But relatively, it's been a very small group of practitioners who have realized the full scope of emptiness, who have realized emptiness of all phenomena, or you could phrase selflessness of all phenomena. And we are not talking about phenomena outside of us, like chairs or desks or plants or anything. We are talking about internal phenomena, mental, emotional phenomena, from existential point of view. Before diving more into emptiness, I just want to say that because of that simple fact that there has been relatively small group of individuals who have gotten to the end of emptiness realization, gone through Kensho stage and Satori stage, this is why this aliveness aspect hasn't really been expanded on, or do you say expounded in English? It hasn't
Yeah.
really been properly expounded. But there are a number of teachers, great masters, who have done that. And this can be seen in some Zen writings, some patriarchs, some Zen masters who speak about this aliveness aspect. I'll just briefly explain this. So, something that people are often fascinated by in Zen Buddhism is the nature theme, nature-themed poems. Full moon, flowers, frogs, animals, nature themes, right?
Mm.
But sometimes these nature themes are not really expressing the richness of life, the fullness of life, the aliveness of all things, but are kind of speaking of nature not from that aliveness perspective, but as pointers to this emptiness, empty nature of mind. But there are Zen masters, Zen poems that do speak from, let's say, very mature or quite mature point of view, when like post emptiness, after emptiness of all phenomena has been realized. In Taoism, it is very much the case. There have been so many, countless Taoist immortals who have written poems, who have painted, and there's a very different spin in Taoism regarding aliveness. And of course, being a fully enlightened Buddha is the same as being an immortal. Like in Taoism, they don't speak about Buddhas but immortals, Xian. And that's where the term Xian Gong, which you mentioned, Rob, comes from.
Mm.
I chose that name, Xian Gong, literally immortality exercises, for the form of bone marrow washing that I practice and teach. Outside Zen Buddhism and Taoism, my favorite of those masters who have excellently and in great depth, spoken about this aliveness perspective is Tibetan master Dolpopa of the Jonang tradition. Dolpopa's writings are just incredibly beautiful and in depth. He was very scholarly, and I'm not scholarly, so in my view, he perhaps goes into it in a bit too much of a doctrinal details. But it's good that it's available for those who want to, who are more scholarly oriented than myself. So Dolpopa is one. Another one is Dolpopa's friend. I think it was third Karmapa. Can't remember his Tibetan Dharma name, but third Karmapa. Dolpopa and third Karmapa were close friends. Another Tibetan who has expounded on the third turning of the wheel of Dharma was Nyingma Lama, from the Nyingma lineage, called Longchenpa. So not only that emptiness perspective, focusing on realizing emptiness, but kind of post-emptiness. So what is post-emptiness? If I say a few words about that before going to Kensho practice and emptiness explaining, I think the term aliveness strikes it really well. The technical term, historical term, is literally Buddha nature. Tathagata Garbha, Buddha nature. Tathagata, it's all about expression. Not just expression of clarity, but expression of kindness, softness, love, song, dance, playfulness, joyfulness. That's what aliveness is about. And this is what we can verify through our own experience related to the meridian system, to the astral body, that the more we purify it, the more kind, soft, playful, spontaneous we become. And this doesn't really happen through emptiness realization. That kind of playfulness doesn't really come about through emptiness realization. And that was, yesterday I was speaking about Tangenroshi, Harada Tangenroshi. That was exactly the point that amazed me about him. Because I was used to, well, Terayama Roshi was really casual. Like he was super famous, highly revered. And despite of that, he was very casual, very friendly in that sense. But most Western Zen teachers, Japanese Zen teachers and masters, they kind of have this very serious feel and quality to them. So it simply means that such practitioners, practicing bodhisattvas, haven't gotten to that point, that realization that Harada Tangenroshi or Bodhidharma or these ancestors did, to twofold or threefold Buddhahood. But realization of emptiness, although it has a, how do you say, like a vicious reputation, a scary reputation, it is not, when we understand, when we have experiences, awakening experiences, these kenshos, these shifts, then it stops being so scary. But if we don't have these shifts, awakenings, it's like living in a nightmare. You know, if you're training day in, day out, as a layperson, training day in, day out, joining retreats, sessions every couple of months. Maybe you travel to a neighboring country to do a session with your teacher, or to the other side of the world to do a session. And despite of this commitment that continues for years, 1 year, 2 years, 3, before you know it, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. And then you might have, first opening on year 4, or year 9, or year 13. Second shift maybe sometime after that. And then it might be that for 4 years you haven't had a single shift. There are people I know, I remember there was this American young man who wrote to me several years ago, who told me about a Zen teacher he had been studying with. And he said that he'd been with this teacher for 4 years. And this teacher was about to be authorized as a full lineage holder, like as a full Zen teacher. And this teacher had been doing koan practice for, I don't remember, many, many years under her or his teacher. But then the teacher confessed that she or he hadn't had a single awakening. And even kind of tried to distract or disguise this lack of experience by saying in a Dharma talk that, well, this awakening isn't really that experience, that important after all.
Well,
Yeah, you can't say anything else but oh wow to that. But there are people like that, teachers like that, teachings like that, and it is not authentic. With all love and respect, this is not authentic. You cannot have a teaching of Dharma or tradition of Dharma without Buddha nature. You simply cannot have such any system of Dharma, or not to even speak of Zen training system, because this is exactly, if you look at writings, there are not much writings from Bodhidharma, but there's Huineng's writings, and many other eminent Zen masters from ancient times, from China to Japan, Korea, and they really do make that point clear. But it isn't, even if they didn't, it is very easy for us as samsaric beings to understand that we are in the middle of this samsaric experience. Samsaric experience is what? It is self-based experience, where we think, react in self-centered, selfish manner. And that is because we have this belief into this notion of I, me, mine, self. We have this belief in this self-entity. We believe that there's this self, me, I, as an entity living in this body. And this is what creates our samsaric delusional condition, that belief. That idea, believing into that idea. So we all have that experience, right? But then, we start practicing something that is very effective, something that enables us to, the way how the energy bodies are, especially if we speak of causal body, because causal body that creates the aura is where this self-delusion lives, is located. And again, these channels of the causal body, they are both inside the physical body, in non-physical space, but also extend outside the body to create the auric field, the energy field. And this is, in the subtler of the two subtle bodies, is where this gross, subtle, and very subtle forms of this selfing, this entityness is stored, where it's recorded. And then we start practicing some practice that is very effective, that allows us to pop out from this self-belief, from that whole world of self-centeredness, self-belief, that experience that is marked by separation from others, separation from anything around us. And when we pop out, when we cut through those layers of selfing, then all that engine based on a sense of self that has the habit of needlessly conceptualizing and brooding endlessly on stuff, that whole engine, pop, for a moment, ceases to be there. It's simply not there for a moment. What is
And
there?
that's
Yeah. So what is
sorry.
there in the place of it? It's just clarity, softness. This kind of like if you have been living in in a place where the air is very stuffy and polluted. Suddenly you have fresh mountain air. The difference is huge. Both are air, but
Mm.
the other one is polluted. And now you're breathing fresh air, figuratively speaking. Same, but in the mind. Same shift, but in the mind. So I'm just making a point that there cannot be any form of Buddhism or Zen Buddhism if you just stay in stuffy, polluted air, stuffy, polluted, self-centered mind. It's like a, what do you call it? Oxymoron. Is that how you say it?
Mm.
And yet, people, you know, well, let's just say it like that. It is a sign of lack of merit when practitioners, senior practitioners of Dharma or teachers of Dharma convince themselves and imply to others that, well, it's actually fine to be a Buddhist or a follower of the Buddha staying in this stuffy, polluted air, staying in this samsaric mind. The samsaric mind implying that samsaric mind is actually Buddha mind, as it is. But it isn't. It isn't. Having said that, there is an advanced stage in, we're talking about Satori stages now, Bhumi perfections from 6th onwards, Bhumi perfection 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, where we realize the sameness of samsara and nirvana, sameness of the two. This is in Mahamudra, it is called same taste or one taste. And this cannot be really conceptually understood. It can be conceptually explained, but unless that stage is already dawning in your practice, it cannot be understood. Sameness of samsara and nirvana. But it simply means that I think it's a good way to explain this, that samsara is like a problem. We have a problem, and then nirvana is a solution to that problem. And then we realized, in the beginning of the path, we have this problem. Oh, self, habits, patterns arising from that notion of self. And this is a problem that I have. So I start practicing and I start having these awakenings, these kenshos, these shifts. Seeing and getting to recognize and experience as a total body-mind experience this Buddha nature, this Buddha mind. And gradually, when that keeps happening, we keep cutting through those layers of selfing in our daily practice, day in, day out, for weeks, months, perhaps few years. We familiarize with this Buddha nature. And through this familiarization, that problem begins to show, you start seeing the problem as the solution. Thus, sameness of problem and solution, sameness of samsara and nirvana. And then when you keep practicing, keep familiarizing with this Buddha nature, then you actually grow out from both samsara and nirvana. In Mahayana, maybe I will add that in Mahayana Buddhism, the definition of nirvana is very different from Hinayana Buddhism. So in Hinayana, nirvana is a state where you get to and leave samsara behind. So you leave samsara behind and achieve or attain nirvana. And then you remain in nirvana that is separate from samsara. This is called, this is called abiding nirvana. Technical term is abiding nirvana. Can't remember the Sanskrit equivalent, but if you Google abiding nirvana, you will find it. In Mahayana, it's very different. The scope of emptiness realization in Mahayana and Hinayana are very different. And that's why in Mahayana, you cover the full scope of emptiness realization that results in this pragya, timeless wisdom. And so when you go through the Bhumi process, Bhumi openings, Bhumi perfections, or Kenshos and Satoris, it results in you grow out from both samsara and nirvana. You grow out from nirvana, you grow out from liberated state. You have no need for a liberated state, to be in liberated state. And that's a sign that selflessness has truly been realized. It is completely out of the system. Completely out of the system, having attained anything. Completely out of the system, the notion of having reached nirvana. And this is why in Mahayana it's called non-abiding nirvana. Non-abiding nirvana. This is also a term, like you can't remember the Sanskrit equivalent, but you can find non-abiding nirvana. But let's go a little farther back with talking about emptiness a bit more broadly, which is what you were asking about. So one unique and really necessary point that Buddha Shakyamuni revitalized, reminded himself, what he discovered himself through his experiences and frustrations, and what he taught to his students and disciples and followers, which of course, we know he kind of reminded the whole world population about this, what we now call emptiness or selfless experience. He reminded about that. He didn't invent it. He just discovered it again. I think that Buddha Shakyamuni didn't come to invent a new religion or a new tradition. I think that he was meant to correct the persistent mistakes of what we now call Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. So the same problems and issues still exist in Hinduism. There is very little understanding in Hinduism, in Sanatana Dharma, about selflessness or jnana, pragya. So the same problems persist. And as we know, teachings of the Buddha became separate from Hinduism, and a new religion came about from Buddha's teachings. But I don't think that was the original intention. I think that the original intention was to fix these problems of Hinduism. So the unique point of Buddha Dharma is that awareness and functioning of the mind are not two separate things. It's kind of like saying that, to use a bit more common analogy, it's kind of like saying that according to Buddhist theory, God and his creation are not two separate things, but the same. And this is the problem that most Hindus don't understand. So divinity or something that is pure being separate from the impure. Divine being separate from, what is the opposite of divine in English? Like from worldly. But in Buddhism, these two are together. And because of this view that is practiced in Vipassana meditation, we can realize the sameness of samsara and nirvana. Without it, we couldn't realize the seamless unity of the two and grow out from being in any kind of state, stuck or liberated state. So we're talking about, in practice, we're talking about this sense of self. And then when we have a self-based reaction in traffic light, when we stub our toe to the chair, when we go to shower and we expect the water to be warm, but then it's cold instead, and we have a reaction where the sense of self, me, I, the thought, the notion of me, I, pops up. In those instances, in those moments, we need to bring awareness to the very core, to the very center of that notion of self. And the way how this notion of self arises is that when we have a strong reaction, it can always be found from the center of the head, behind the eyes. It always creates like an identification. This notion of self, me, I can be found from behind the eyes. If the reaction isn't particularly strong, then the strongest sensation of the self, I, is somewhere in the body. And then we have to detect where exactly it is. We simply have to feel. Where is this sense of meanness, I-ness felt? Is it chest, in throat, in shoulders, in the gut? Where is it? In legs, arms? Where is it? Or is it in the head? But you have to find it first. And then when you find it, you simply bring awareness in the middle of it. Blend awareness with the reaction. Blend awareness with the notion of self. There are classical Vipassana instructions like when we have a reaction, then that we are then to locate it and then kind of get a sense what's the form of that reaction that has an energetic form, what the shape of it is, the feel of it is, the texture of it is, and then feel it, look at it from the outside, and then go inside it and feel it from the inside. Vipassana meditation manuals from any Buddhist tradition speak about this. Just in different ways, perhaps a bit different expression, but this is what they tell us. Bring awareness to places where awareness isn't touching yet, where awareness, illumination isn't established yet. And this leads to awakening. This leads to insight, moments of insight. This leads to shifts in our mind, shifts. Suddenly we see that that self, me or I, that has made us react in this selfish, self-absorbed, self-centered, self-based manner for years and years and years, you see that, oh, actually, I thought that there was a self-entity in me, in my head, in my chest, in my mind, but actually there is no solid self-entity. I only believed and assumed that there was. But such an entity as like the word entity suggests, such an entity is just imagination and stubborn belief. And when we see through this self-belief, in the place of it, selfless mind, Buddha mind. And when the Buddha mind is recognized, the separation from others, separation from the world around us, not there. Suddenly the mind is clear because it's selfless experience. Suddenly there is so much more softness, spontaneity, and also natural, spontaneous groundedness. It sounds, I try to explain these things in a way that are as easy as possible to understand. I don't like to use like some fancy theories, and sometimes you can hear explanations of emptiness where teachers speak about snakes and ropes, or deconstructing desks or chairs. Well, we are not deconstructing a chair or a desk. We are trying to deconstruct our self-delusion, it happens in the mind. It doesn't happen out there with the chair. It happens inside here in the mind. But I try to explain with as simple terms as possible. Well, I have broken English, so I couldn't really use fancy words to begin with. But so yes, coming back to your original question about emptiness and fullness. So emptiness doesn't mean that the cup is empty. Fortunately, my cup is full with tea, but emptiness doesn't mean that a container is empty of substance. This is not the meaning of emptiness. This is not the meaning of zero-ness, shunyata. What it literally means, shunyata, zero-ness. But what you are talking about is when you said that when you are doing standing practice with ancestors, you feel this fullness of experience, right?
Yes.
That fullness, that loadedness, that you're talking about aliveness aspect of your true nature. And something that I have to add, that I've been speaking about emptiness as Kensho and Satori as in the beginning, and then you get to Daigo stage and to this work with this aliveness aspect. This is like an artificial categorization. We all have the same Buddha nature, which means that we can all glimpse, momentarily access both the selflessness or aliveness. Sometimes both of them together. Okay?
Mhm.
So it is not like emptiness is a prerequisite for having glimpses or experiences of aliveness. This would be incorrect to say. But yeah, to me also, like Europe, I spent many years extremely frustrated and very dull practice really to you pronounced standing practice Chanchuang. I don't know how it's pronounced in Mandarin China, but you said Chamjong, which is
Kensho.
that's what's the other main dialect of Chinese? Mandarin Chinese and
Cantonese.
Cantonese. That's Cantonese pronunciation, Chamjong. But I had the same experience that it was very frustrating and boring and painful to do standing practice like it is taught in, let's say, secular internal arts, internal martial arts, internal arts. But it's a completely different world opens up when you do the practice with somebody like Bodhidharma or any of the Taoist immortals. It's a
Mhm.
completely different experience and very fulfilling.
Yep.
Yeah. Ladies and gents, it's I realize it's almost already closing 6 p.m. So I feel very hungry myself. So let's start a break for 1 hour and 20 minutes. So we will continue 10 past 7 local time. 1 hour and 20 minutes. Okay? Thank you very much, and we'll continue in a bit. Enjoy your meal.